This session is really talking about our project methodology, so what to expect during an implementation. What we'll cover off is our methodology, timelines, estimated timelines, and then also what it takes or what you should expect on your side, the customer side of effort. So it'll match, we've got a graph up there that Sylvia will talk through that matches up to our implementation methodology. So BAS's implementation methodology is a methodology that has been born and raised again and adjusted as we've grown as a company over the 35 years. We've worked with our top publishers to pull out their best of breed, their best practices, BASize them to a degree that what works best for us and works best for our customers. You know, what works best are best practices that publishers have doesn't always translate well to every customer downstream. So when we say we've BASized it, it means we've kind of right-sized it, done some tweaking to it based on our experience, based on the knowledge that we've gained over the years of what works well and what doesn't work well. Of course, everything that goes or that overshadows all of these pillars is the relationship that you have with your implementation partner. Whether that's BAS, you choose to work with somebody else, that relationship that you have with your implementation partner is critical to the success or failure of your project. So from an initiation, we've got these 5 pillars basically. So solution design is comprised of 2 areas, initiation and design. And I'll let Sylvie speak to each one of those in more detail. But essentially what solution design is where the very first step where we come in and we evaluate your processes. We evaluate with you your critical requirements. Interviewing your key stakeholders, making sure that we fully understand the scope of what you're about to embark on so that we can help set forth a plan that will get you to that point of success, okay? Now, that all starts with a solution design. That is a document that becomes basically the foundation of your statement of work of what's going to be delivered. So it'll lay out our deliverables, it lays out what your deliverables, your responsibilities are, and then we move into the design, which is more the validation of their system requirements, the solution design, becoming the requirements analysis, UAT, and so on. So do you want to talk more to each one of those first 2 pillars?
Thank you, Jeff. So for anyone who wasn't here in the earlier session today, my name is Sylvie Kyle. I'm a PMP. I'm a project manager working for BAS. I've been at BAS for 3 years. And when you're going to see this slide, if you do endeavor on an X3 project, is during the transition between the sales to the project team. So at this point in time in the game, you're here, you're interested in X3, you're dealing with Jeff, Denis, you're analyzing if X3 is the right solution for you, and then a decision is made within your organization. We're going with X3, we're ready to start. Then we have a project team, we put a project team in place. The project team will come in, the kickoff, so in the green, you've confirmed your project objectives. Jeff hands me over a statement of work, SOW, SOW, and then we kick off your project. We start the solution design, requirement analysis, interview. So this is you've discussed with Jeff. Now you're talking to the application team, the consultant, who are going to reaffirm your requirements. What does your business need? Does the system fit your business requirement? Are there any gaps before we can start with the build? So each phase of the project has a red highlight, which is a milestone, or in project management, we sign off on these milestones, and that's a gate that we are good to proceed to the next step of the project. So milestones are very important during project management. As you can see in the design stage, after the interview, sometimes there'll be gaps that will be identified. Oh, you know what? I really need your software to do this. So we might have to say, well, we'll look at an ISV, for example, right? So there could be change requests at this time, where the original plan was to go ahead. You'll hear me talk, if we implement a project together, you'll hear me say out of the box, right? You get your Christmas gift, you open the box, there's a Sage X3 software, out of the box. We work with this, oh, wait a minute, I need an ISV, I need something else, I need to add on something. We'll do change requests, but Other than that, the solution design is another big milestone in your project plan and your project implementation. And then once we're ready to start the build, as you can see in this, there's a break, right? So then we really start the data migration, the installation of the software by the technical team. We have Tim Barry in the back, and Tamal has left the room, but then these guys will come in. We have server readiness, the environment. Once the server are ready, we come in, we install the software, then it goes back to the application consultant team to configure, set up the software, get the system ready for end user training. Key user training, sorry, the project team. So, right, we empower, at BAS, we really empower our clients to be self-sufficient, or, you know, we want you to become the expert in your system. So we spend a lot of time on the education side of things because it's important. We want you to become the expert and know your system and know how to use it. Once the project team is comfortable, then we bring in sometimes other users for testing. User acceptance testing. If any of you in the room have worked in a lot of these software implementation projects, UAT, that's when, from an end user standpoint, is this going to help me do my job? I'm an AP person, I need to process invoices. Is the software going to, how am I going to do this job? Is it going to work for my business? So that's when we kind of validate that the system is ready for going live. In the monitor stage of the project, it's the project team going to the end user. Sometimes the end users, the staff, is a small or big group, but that's when we empower the project team to, again, take and bring it into your business, to your staff. And then we go live and we fingers crossed, because every problem gets identified during testing. So when we go live, smooth sailing. Thank you. Next.
I just want to add a few things.
Oh, boys.
Just, no, I'll be brief. This is one slide, but as a differentiator, I know we talked about partnering, and then we talked about, you know, who are you going to take the journey with? This is something that we will not deviate from that. I mean, even if we try as application consultant deviate, then we have the PM police, the project police. But this is super important. Again, as Jeff highlighted, this is why we are here today celebrating 35 years. That's why there's so many of you here as well. It works, right? And I can't stress enough, especially on the X3 side, we're relatively new to the X3 market. And what we're finding is, and again, it's not to bash or again, as a differentiator, what we've noticed is there's lots of partners that are approaching this as more of a T&M and more of an agile method, meaning that they're going to come in, oh yeah, here's kind of they do minimum scoping, right? And then we get into it. And then as you start modifying and then the billing and then just like, almost like when you go fueling at the pump, right? It's just the numbers are just going, right, exponentially. And remember what I said earlier, I mean, X3, if you don't plan and if you get too excited, the numbers can definitely go up pretty quick. So that's one thing, a differentiator for us, is doing this design phase, setting the right expectations, us listening first, then proposing, you know, perhaps to crawl, walk, run, perhaps to do this in phases, perhaps to kind of say, you know what, yeah, this is all great, but you're gonna fail because we've done this before, we've seen this before, right? And we're gonna challenge you. We're gonna challenge you to say, hey, this is what we do for a living on a day-to-day basis. You know, you're saying you're being optimistic. I had a conversation earlier today about, with, you know, I don't think they're in a room, but when they ask us, like, you know, timelines, what are we looking at? And when we share the timeline, they're like, woo, okay, that's yeah, we get that reaction all the time. And we also get the, you know, well, I told you so, right? When we get to the point where, when we said, yeah, it's gonna take 3 months, it does take 3 months. So again, on this, you know, what I say is like, trust us. We've been around with, this is not our first rodeo. This works. The other piece as well is on the UAT, right? The testing. We're gonna force you to build a script, you know, try to break the system. So when you say fingers crossed, yeah, we're crossing our fingers, but at that time we're pretty confident that, you know, there's nothing major that's gonna happen. Why? Because we've put this through the test internally first, as after the build, and we're gonna force you to go through and test that system. So again, it takes time, right? So I just wanted to, it is definitely a key differentiator between BAS and a lot of other partners, how they approach, especially on the X3 side.
No, that's a good point, because yes, as a PMP, as a project manager, it's my career. I've been doing this for 18 years. And that's what I love working at BAS. It's the BAS project methodology. It's aligned with the global PMI, the Project Management Institute standards, and it works. And when there's problems during project implementations, there's usually something that we tried to skip or something went wrong. If we follow this project methodology, our projects are very successful. Not without problems, because there's always little turns and hicks in the road, but with a good project team, we have good communication, we find solutions, and we help you through. And here is the project management package. So as you're signing up on X3 implementation, I don't think, Jeff, we would ever go with essentials, right? X3.
Yeah, so
we would standard or premium.
With X3, probably not. These are our standard project management options that are available across all our product lines. For Sage X3, because of the involvement, the collaboration that's required both sides, it does require a higher level of project management. So we typically do standard or advanced, standard or premium. Essentials is really if you're doing a light implementation. So if we were doing a phased approach and something else was being added or an enhancement down the road, essentials may come in, but not for the initial implementation. Really only used for future projects.
Yeah, I would say my recommendation on if you should choose between standard and premium goes with if within your organization you have a project manager type role, somebody that can dedicate the time to do the project management on your side of the fence. So I'll be project managing, ensuring that our team at BAS gets the task done on time, but you guys have a day job. That's what we do for a living, right? So if I assign Denis to work on your project in an afternoon, Denis is going to work on your project. He does not have a customer or another day job or month end or these things to tend to, right? We're dedicated on the, so if you have a project manager type role in your organization that's going to be there to coordinate, ensure the tasks get done, then you could probably get away, and semi-monthly, right? So semi-monthly meetings with your project team means that if somebody hasn't done their job for the last 2 weeks, we find out 2 weeks later and we're 2 weeks behind schedule, right? So you really need to be monitoring these things with me as a team. It's a project team. It's not BAS and the customer who's, two separate project is teamwork, right? If you go to the premium package, we have weekly calls. I would say this, to me anyway, in my opinion, it's my 5 cents, my 2 cents. Weekly calls are the best because we keep on track of things, right? Whatever we accomplished in the last week, did we do the task that we wanted to do? What's our priorities for the week? And then we set out to do those things. If something falls behind, we find out every week, right? And it depends how rush you are for this project, right? If you want a project to be done as quickly as possible, then weekly calls are the best way to ensure that things get done and that we don't fall too much behind schedule. That's about what I wanted to cover. Here's an example timeline. This is a 2 weeks period. So if you see 2 blue dots, that's a whole month, right? So the blue is BAS, the blue shirts, and the green is customer involvement. I think if there's one thing from working with clients, I've managed over 150 some projects with BAS. I've managed many, many projects with many different project teams in my career. I don't think that I think we need to realize that there's a lot of work, a lot of involvement on your end as well. And as I said, you guys are busy, you have a day job, so it's very difficult to make the time to spend on project work. The green, so you see where you guys will be involved in the solution design, the requirement gathering. We need to ask you questions. We need to have those interviews and find out if the solution meets your need or if there's any gaps or any solutions that we need to identify so that the work can begin to build. And then during the data migration, that's your data, right? So you have to compile your list of clients, the suppliers. One thing, it's a bit challenging I think data migration is one of those things that clients maybe sometimes don't realize that there's a lot of work on your end to do during these phases of the project. But we're there all the way, right? We're there to assist, we're there to help. Terry is always there to answer the questions, Denis and the team. And the UAT, see the green when we start user acceptance testing? Those are months, right? Every 2 dots is a whole month. So we have to plan, so you have to come into this project, like Jeff mentioned, or Denis, this is not a 3 months project, okay? But if we plan accordingly and you know we set the right expectations, then, lost my train of thought.
Yeah, so this chart is based on, for those who are in here on the investment tab or the investment slide from last session, this is based off of that investment. We call it, what, $280,000, break that down into time, into days, weeks, hours, that sort of thing. This is how that chart is broken out. And the next slide that you'll see, which is your time requirement, our time requirement, it's all based on that same slide. So keeping continuity throughout the presentation. That goes through, if you go back, Denis, this is a timeline of what, about 15 months, Denis? That's right?
This is 60 weeks, right?
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, less than a year would be hard for us.
Yeah.
And that's to do the full scope, right? So that's doing full manufacturing, CRM, inter-entity, fixed assets. That's implementing the full suite of X3 functionality. Okay, next slide, please. So here, again, broken out into the pillars based on our implementation methodology. The blue being VAST, red being you being the client. And you can see how at each stage there's different requirements. Through the build, a lot of that is on us. Now, through the initiation and design stages, that's a very collaborative process where our involvement is essentially the same. As we get into monitoring, we're monitoring you as you're going through your UAT, so user acceptance testing. And then go live, again, we're there to support you as your team's going live. Our ultimate goal of implementations is to get you to own your systems. We know the knowledge of how to use the systems. You have the knowledge of your business. We have to transfer our knowledge of using the system to you so that you can implement it. You can use it on a daily basis in your environment.
And be self-sufficient.
And ultimately, it's yours, right? It's your data, it's your business, it's your software solution. So we want to make sure that we hand that over to you in a methodology and a process that you retain it, that you can be self-sufficient. The worst thing that we have is a hands in your pocket scenario where you're afraid to call us because it's going to ring up a support bill. We want you to be that first line of support. And when you don't do those things on a regular basis or you run into a situation that's unique, then call us for support. But ultimately, we want to get you to that point of being self-sufficient.
Do you create a test environment where
Yes.
you can go ahead and play in there?
Yes. The build takes place in a pilot folder, and then that's where we play around. So people would call it the sandbox. You play around with fake data. We just build, but we do bring in your data, your customer list, so that you can play around with your actual customer data. So we want real life as close as possible, right?
Yes.
Yes.
That's the whole purpose of UAT.
Yes.
Try to break it.
Yes.
We're asking, we're begging you to destroy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then is the time to destroy.
Yeah.
No, not right.
Just one thing on the monitor stage, just so that I want to give you an example that, don't take these slides like with too much, don't let it scare you off. We're currently implementing a project. Armin was in the room in a few sessions today. They're a company with very, not a lot of staff. So the project team are mostly the users. So as they're receiving the education session and knowledge transfer, there's going to be very limited need for staff training. So that monitor stage where the power user or the super user, the project team goes and transfers the knowledge or does the training for the staff, that's only planned for a week. They only have one user that they want to train, so that's going to be very quick, right? If your organization is, a team of 50 project team individual or, 20, and then you have 100 or 200 staff training, then we'll plan accordingly. So that bar can go up and down depending on your business, your organization. We'll work with you throughout.
You'll see here when on the total column, 1,245 and 1,168.
It's teamwork.
it's very collaborative. It's almost equal. But the reason that implementations don't happen in a year is what about just under 2,100 hours in the average working year for individuals. We're over that, a fair bit over, and that just takes time. And then you have to also account for vacations, for sick days, for life, for business processes, critical business cycles that you can't be doing implementations during that phase. So that's why these timelines tend to stretch out, and that's
Month
where
end.
yeah, month ends, year ends, audits. That's where your planning, that strategy of how do we take that next step. It's so critical to get that done out front and be able to adjust that as needed as your business cycles change, as life happens.